Okay, part two. For some reason, the recording stopped. All right, so like I was saying, she used to make her ballroom dresses, and they were very sequiny. So sequins and grandmas go together for me. Um, so we're trying to achieve not a picture of the sequins in the background, right? Because it's, I don't know, I'm not really interested in taking a bust of my grandma with the really clear focus sequins in the background. I'm using them to reflect light, and I'm using them to create color. And they're going to be blurry. They're going to be blurry because I'm choosing to take a shallow depth of field shot. So I'm going to have focus on her eyes and her face, and everything else behind her is going to get blurry. Now you might ask, well, how do you do that? There's not much space between her and in the background. Well, you do that with a really, 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 really wide open aperture or a low f-stop number. So this is a Nikon D3400. Some of you are using this camera. The lowest f-stop on here is 4.5. So I'm going to set it to 4.5. So I have an ISO of 400 and an aperture of 4.5. That's going to give me focus on her facial features, and it's going to give me this beautiful bokeh in the background with the sequins. So bokeh really is a technique that photographers use with shallow depth of field, where there's super high focus here, and then the bokeh is any light source that's in the background. It's so blurry that it kind of looks like sort of like a halo of light, and it's just kind of dotted everywhere, and it's really pretty. So that's kind of what I'm going for with this here. So ISO 400, 4.5 aperture. Well, what do I do with my shutter speed? Well, here's some limitations. You're probably not going to have a tripod at home. If you do, more power to you. You have more freedom if you have a tripod. Because when you're holding your camera, something will happen called camera shake. So we don't want that camera shake because then our shot's going to be blurry. We want it to be super, super sharp, especially on the features where we're focusing. So that being said, you have to understand something about the focal length of your lens. So you guys have something called a kit lens. It's the lens that comes with your camera body when you buy it kind of as a package. And the kit lens is typically 18 to 55 millimeters. We'll talk about focal length in another lesson, but just know that if you're going to be holding your camera and shooting without a tripod, your max focal length has to kind of match up with your shutter speed. So what that means is that I have to be either equivalent to or faster than 55. So for example, 1/60th of a second is what I would need to set my shutter to avoid camera shake with this lens, with the 55 millimeter lens. So 1/60th is that 60 that we're looking at. There's no 55, there's no 1/55. So 1/60th of a second is as slow as I can go with this lens while I'm holding my camera. Any slower, and it doesn't matter how still you hold your camera, it's still going to be kind of soft and blurry. Okay, so next step is to get your sliding situation right. So I'm not going to turn the classroom lights off. Pretend like I did, click, and then I'm going to turn this can light on. So bright. I don't know if I really like the brightness of this, but that's okay. We're going to just go with it. I can diffuse it, right? I'm going to diffuse it. So the first thing I want to do, I have my camera set to 400 ISO. I have my aperture set to 4.5, and I have my shutter speed set to 1/60th of a second. Those are kind of like my general guesses at what I'm going to need here. Next thing I need to do, I'm not ready to shoot. I need to see what my camera's meter says about this lighting situation. So I'm going to back up and I'm going to compose my shot. I'm going to crop in pretty tight here. I'm going to focus on the eyes, but I'm not going to take the picture yet. I'm going to focus on the eyes, and inside the viewfinder and also on your LCD panel, you're going to see the light meter. And those little crosshatch bars are going to tell you if you're overexposed or if you're underexposed. So you're going to do it one more time, and you're going to look at that light meter. It's telling me that it's overexposed by quite a number of stops. So that's a good thing, because now I can make my shutter speed faster to get a correct shot, a correct exposed shot. So I'm going to back up again, and I'm going to move my shutter speed up. So now I'm at 1/160th of a second, and it says I'm correctly exposed. I'm going to take my shot. So I've got the bokeh. I wish I could show you what I see here. I'll show you later. I've got the bokeh kind of blurry background, and then I've got a sharp focus on the facial features, and it is correctly exposed. So that is a good shot. Now, this is where the fun starts to happen, because I figured out how to get a good shot. Okay, don't give up at that stage. There's more work to do here. There's more exploration to do. So what can I do to change the situation? So let's experiment. I've collected all this stuff. I've made all these things. So let's see. First thing I made was something called a reflector. Now, if you are in a professional studio, you buy these reflectors. They're called 5-in-1s, where it comes with 5 different surfaces to bounce light off of. And you know, one of them is white, like a opaque white. Another one is gold. Another one is silver. Another one is black. And another one is kind of like a sheer white. But this is just a frame and a piece of drawing paper taped to it. You guys can do that at home. You can find something. So remember, we're pretending like it's kind of dark around me, and then all I have on is my can light here. So this can light's super intense, and it's shining on the side of the face here. So what that creates on the other side is a pretty deep shadow on the other side of her face. If I like that contrast, but I don't necessarily want to lose half her face in the shot, I can do something called creating fill light. So this reflector is going to stand up, and it's going to bounce this light off of the white reflector and back into the shadows on the face. And it's not going to get rid of the shadows, but it's going to fill them in a little bit with light so that we see the details. I can see like her nostril and some of the wrinkles on her eyes, stuff like that. So experiment with that. Take a couple shots. Try to recruit an assistant, you know, like a family member to help you. If not, you're going to need props. You're going to need like chairs and things to prop your stuff up. I created a diffuser. This is also just a frame and some paper towel taped to the frame. And this is, I'm going to diffuse the light source. So I'm actually going to hold it in front of the light source. And this is transparent enough that it's kind of like spreading the light out and making it softer so that the light that hits the face is going to be less intense. I don't know if I said this in this presentation yet, but when you're working with a hot lamp or a light and you have paper and fabric to put in front of it, safety precaution. Never drape fabric or paper over your light. No matter how hot you think that light's going to get, don't do it. It could start a fire. If you need to use a diffuser or fabric, I want you to tape it up on something separate and put it far enough away from that light that it's safe. And then once you get your shot, take it down. Don't leave it up and leave that light on, because eventually that heat of that lamp will start smoking your fabric or your paper. So absolutely do not do that. Okay. So yeah, play around. You know, what does the yellow do to the color in the shot? And you're not going to know really until you take that shot and you open it up in PhotoP, Photoshop, Lightroom, and look at it. And then also it's kind of fun, like, you know, you might want to find things that cast a shadow, like maybe a shadow pattern, maybe some gauze or some, not gauze, but like holy fabric that, you know, maybe the light goes through the fabric and casts an interesting spotted texture on the face. You know, this is where we can get into some, you know, some really fun fashion stuff, like if you're into shooting clothes and makeup and studio lighting and all that stuff. This is where you can have fun and be creative and experiment. So, just a quick review before I shut down here. Shooting in manual mode, my ISO is 400, my aperture is 4.5, and my shutter speed is at least 1/60th of a second, preferably faster. And then I'm using my light meter to read my shot, and then I'm deciding, is it too bright or too dark? And then I adjust. In this situation, the only thing I really can adjust is my shutter speed, because I need as much light as I can get with that aperture open. So if I start to close it, I'm losing light, so I can't really close it. I can bump my ISO up, but you know, like I said, it's going to get grainy, and we want to avoid that too. So really, in this situation, with this lighting source and, you know, the DIY scene, all you really can do is mess with your shutter speed. If you have a tripod, you can do whatever you want. You can set it up and you can shoot for a half a second. You could shoot for 2, 3, 4 seconds if you need that light. As long as your camera is on the tripod and you're not touching it, it's fine. It's even better when you have a shutter cable, because even when you hit that shutter button, you're shaking the camera a little bit. So if you have a shutter cable, click, and it does it for you, and your camera never shakes. So that is it for today. Thank you so much.